What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical average American here today to react and learn about a Canadian woman thrown in jail for the crime of driving her car in the United States. Seriously, it's as simple as that. This is a news story from the CBC News channel that I stumbled upon. This is actually not a new news story. It's actually 5 years old, but it's new to me. I had never heard about this. And this video, this news coverage of this was viewed like 3.6 million times over the past 5 years. So obviously this story has resonated with a lot of people, and I think for good reason. I think one of the reasons this jumps out to me is because certainly over the last few years in the United States, the topic of law enforcement in America has become a really, really hot button issue. And honestly, Americans' trust in the competence and safety of our own law enforcement really went down a lot over the last few years for a variety of reasons. And I think right now it's just now starting to regain that trust. But besides that topic, I also just thought this was a really interesting, sad story that I wanted to learn more about that might explain, some of the stuff I learn about Canadians and their feelings towards America in general, some negative feelings, stuff like this obviously has a deep-seated impact on the relationship between Canada and the United States. So I just wanted to learn more about this. This sounded outrageous to me. So, Ontario woman arrested, jailed in US for driving with a Canadian driver's license. Okay.
It is a highway well traveled by Canadians, to say the least, as they drive through the United States. The I-75.
I-75. I actually, is that like a very popular Canadian highway? Or Canadian highway that Canadians travel on through America? I'm not familiar with it. Let me look this up. Here we go. Highway75.com. They have their own website. Oh yeah, oh wow. Yeah, this goes all the way to Florida? Wait, you can drive all the way down through Ontario straight to Florida. I didn't know there was one highway you could do that on. Huh. Whenever Canadians get a little hankering, when the mood strikes you to drive down to the Florida beaches, you can just take this highway. Well, probably not so much anymore after stuff like this, I tell you. Wow.
One young Ontario woman who was taking that highway ended up in the back of a cruiser because she was Canadian.
They're taking away my car, and now I can't drive, and I don't know what to do. I'm in Georgia.
Freaking Georgia. Wow, this is so sad. Man, I'm actually glad she had the presence of mind during this whole situation to get her cell phone out and tape something, video record herself or the situation, because it's kind of tough to remember to do that in the moment, but living in this modern world, that's actually a really smart thing to have on the front of your mind when stuff is going on that you think is illegal, like getting put in the back of a police car by a United States police officer for being Canadian. That is... I hope they explain what the police officer was thinking or what was going on here. But yeah, this video is sad.
Pretty upset, understandably. That's Emily Neal, who calls her arrest last month the most horrendous incident of her life.
Well, I'm glad she's sipping tea back at her house now. It seems like everything turned out okay. But then again, we are like 5 years later. If she was still... I shouldn't laugh, but if she was still sitting in American prison for getting pulled over in her car 5 years later, I'd have to stop the video and go march down to Georgia and be like, what's going on here? What's going on here? And they'd be like, get out of here.
And she's looking for an apology from the officer who charged her. Well, this is a story that certainly caught our attention. Emily Neal out of the cruiser, back in Canada with family in Kleinburg, and with me this morning so we can tell you more about her story. Good to see you, Emily. And
oh, that's good. I'm glad she agreed to do this. I'm I really want the details on this story. Why was she pulled over? Like, is there something here? Something? I'm desperately trying to lend some kind of credit to the officer who did this. Like, are they just a complete buffoon? Are they just, is it sheer American police incompetence? I'm afraid that is what it is. I think that is probably what it is. Was she speeding? Is there any credence to this at all?
Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Heather.
So let's go through what you went through. There you are back in Kleinburg, thankfully. But as I was mentioned there, your story is you were in Georgia, driving through Georgia. You got pulled over for speeding. And
okay, not that that makes it okay, obviously, but I was like, how did she get pulled over? Did the police officer pull her over for no reason, then throw her in jail? Then it's like the police officer needs to be fired. Probably needs to be fired for doing this anyway, now that I think of it. Man, this just raises so many questions about, like, is it just too easy to become a police officer in the United States? Is the training, is the screening not good enough? Because the behaviors here are just completely unacceptable.
this is when the odyssey began. What happened when you handed over your valid Ontario license to that police officer?
She saw my license, and then she took a moment, looked down upon it, and she said, "This is not valid." And I was like, "No, my license has not been expired or anything like that." She's like, "No, this is a Canadian driver's license. I can't accept this."
This is not valid. She hits you with the "this is not valid." What is, part of me thinks because the police officer pulled her over for speeding, the police officer was already prejudiced against her and in a bad mood, and letting that bias her even further to be like, okay, what else can I come up with to get this person in trouble? And then lo and behold, it turns out to be a Canadian just traveling through to or from Florida. Well, I guess she didn't necessarily have to go to Florida, but the highway does go there. I don't know where else you'd go. Every Canadian ever just goes to Florida. But yeah, there's something very fishy about this. And again, this is why there's trust issues, I think, with law enforcement and the American people and our own law enforcement. There's a lot of trust issues because a lot of Americans, probably for good reason, in this same situation would feel like, okay, why is this officer doing this? And honestly, at this point, I'm kind of over the why did the officer do this? The why doesn't even matter at this point. It's just like gross incompetence. As a matter of fact, let me make sure. Let me look this up. Google, here we go. Can you drive in America with a Canada license? What does it say? Can you drive with a Canadian's driver's license? Canadians with a provincial driver's license do not need an IDP to drive in the U.S. International driving permit. So yes, can I drive in the USA with a foreign license? Foreigners are allowed to drive 3 to 6 months with a foreign driver's license. How long can I drive in the USA with a Canadian license? 6 months. You can drive with a Canadian license before it's against the law. What I even typed it into ChatGTP here to ask the AI about this. Yes, it's legal for Canadians to drive in the United States with a valid Canadian driver's license. Why would this police officer not even look up this law if she was unsure about the law? I think that's maybe one of the worst parts of this too. Just to double down on it and be like, no, this doesn't work here. Like, oh man. It's frustrating.
How do I know if you are actually Canadian or if this is a forgery?
What?
Yes. How do I know if you are actually Canadian or if this is a forgery?
How do I know if you're Canadian or this is a forgery? Couldn't you ask that? Should we ask that question about every single American who's pulled over too? Couldn't they have a forged American driver's license? Are we just gonna question every document ever based on that logic?
Canadian licenses aren't accepted in the state of Georgia. And I was just flabbergasted when you told me that.
How do we know it's not a fraud? Because she did ask you for supplemental ID too, didn't she?
Yes, I did have more forms of ID. I had my OHIP card on me, but my passport, I don't keep it on me when I'm traveling. I like to keep it back in the hotel or back at the home that I'm staying at. And she kept insisting on seeing my passport, which I didn't have on me. I had a copy of it along with a copy of my birth certificate and Nexus card.
She even had a birth certificate. Like a copy of her birth certificate and passport and driver's license. Wow.
All on my
I really do feel like this American officer literally had it out for her at this point. Like,
phone, but she did not want to see any of those.
Isn't that
see any of what?
Certificate and Nexus card, all on my phone, but she did not want to see any of those.
She just didn't want to see it. It was too inconvenient. That would go against the made-up fantasy law that I'm creating here. I don't want to see any of that. That would disprove my point.
Isn't that interesting? Because that's what they often advise you, to keep the original safe in case of loss or theft or something, and keep copies, and she wouldn't accept those. So then, what happened?
She promptly told me that I was now under arrest, I could not drive in the state of Georgia, and that my car had to be impounded. So she put handcuffs on me, frisked me.
Wow. This officer literally tripled down on this. That is scary. That's scary. Like, this could happen to anyone. Like, knowing that this is possible is disturbing. And that, with that many forms of identification, that an officer would handcuff you and put you in the back of their car, and I think they end up taking her to literal jail.
And put me in the back of her police car, and we waited until a tow truck driver can come and take my car away.
And then she took you where?
She took me straight to jail.
To
in
jail?
Which I was, yes, to jail, in which I was processed, booked, fingerprinted, mugshot, had to wear.
No wonder she was like crying in that little cell phone video she was doing of herself. Like, imagine you're just driving, you're in a foreign country, you're a Canadian in America, you're already not familiar with everything, you think you're abiding by all the rules, you are abiding by all the rules, and then suddenly, in a matter of like 10 minutes, you're pulled over, put in handcuffs, and taken to American jail. Like, it's amazing she was that composed doing the video in the back of that police car.
Orange, the whole shebang, and I was in.
Wait, they even made her do like the orange jumpsuit?
Orange, the whole shebang, and
It's just ridiculous.
I was in jail and forced to pay a bail to get out.
Wow.
How long were you there?
They told me I was going to stay there until June 12th unless I paid the bail, but as soon as I was paid the bail, I was released after approximately 3 to 4 hours.
This happened, though, the beginning of...
Okay, at least she was able to pay the bail and get out, but I'd like to know, like, when was she booked? How, she said she would have been processed further or moved by June, when?
I was released after approximately, unless I paid the bail.
Were you there?
They told me I was going to stay there until June 12th.
I'm not sure I'm not sure when she was arrested. If they were actually going to keep her there for more than, well, honestly, being there a single second is preposterous. But I'd like to know how preposterous this was going to get. Were they actually going to keep her behind bars for like days? Like, it almost would have been a good thing in the end. Because I'm talking about lawsuits. That's right. I'm bringing up the lawsuits. Where are they? Because it almost would have been better off for her at that point to just let them dig their own grave, whatever Georgia Police Department this is, and keep her in jail based on a false law, like made up law, basically. Oh, you can't drive with your driver's license in the state of Georgia. Okay. And then she could maybe have like got a little money. Is that a super American like train of thought I immediately go to, how she could just like take them for all the money? But kind of be some kind of revenge.
Approximately 3 to 4 hours.
This happened, though, the beginning of April. So they were telling you April, May, mid-June? Had you
Yes,
not
it
paid
happened
that
April
amount?
2nd.
Wait, what?
May, mid.
Worse.
This happened though the beginning of April. So they were telling you April, May, mid-June? Had you
Yes,
not
it
paid
happened
that
on April
amount?
2nd, which
Okay,
was my
that's
birthday.
Oh, they were gonna keep her there for months? I don't believe it. Like, this is actually one of the most insane stories I've ever heard of, like, American police incompetence. They were going to put her in jail for months.
Oh my goodness. Not such a happy birthday. So there you
No.
are. You're all by yourself. You're a young woman in jail in Georgia. I mean, what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I was terrified. I'd never been in that sort of situation. I kept hearing all these noises from other people who were locked up, and I was just kept thinking, oh my gosh, is something going to happen to me? Am I going to get hurt?
She's in the Georgia jail, and she turns to everyone, and she's like, "What are you in here for?" And everyone else in the prison is like, we're Canadian. Got caught driving down the highway. You too? Oh, man, yeah, they're getting all of us today. Like,
And no one knew where I was. If it wasn't for the Snapchat feature, Find My Friend, no one would have known that I was in jail.
Yeah, so explain that because we had that video. That video that will
I can't believe she got all the way into jail. Even though it was for 4 hours in the grand scheme of things, I cannot believe she got fingerprinted, booked, put into the system, put in a cell without anyone. This isn't even on that original officer at that point. She's like the start of it, but now everyone in that line of processing is like associated with somehow letting this crazy facade continue.
show again. You were able to grab some of that when you were in the cruiser, and you sent that back to people at home?
Yes, I had my cell phone on me. I was not hiding it. The police officer let me keep it. And my cell phone was kind of old, so that the GPS location was not working, so I couldn't find myself. But I was able to send a Snapchat to friends to be like,
Thank you. She didn't know at the time that they were gonna let her post a bail and leave. Like, for all she knew, they were going to make her stay in jail for who knows how months, apparently.
hey, I don't know where I am. Help me, get me out of jail. And through that app, they knew exactly where my phone was located. They were able to find me and start connecting me with a lawyer and trying to get me out.
So it's
Wow.
interesting. We were looking at the Georgia Department of Driver Services website. I mean, it's really clear. Emily, this is what it says. Non-U.S. citizens holding a valid foreign driver's license are allowed to drive in the state of Georgia.
There you have it. Literally on their own website. You can look up this exact law, and it's legal. That police officer who pulled her over literally made stuff up. That being a police officer is such a position of power and trust and privilege. Like in any society, there should be such dire consequences to abusing that power. I think that's another reason why Americans, and probably Canadians as well, based on this, and rightfully so, have a lot of skepticism and mistrust in American law enforcement. Because it does seem like at times they are invulnerable to the laws which govern normal people, normal everyday people. Somehow the rules don't apply to police officers. That's not right.
I mean, was this officer just mistaken? Or what happened? How did you,
No.
I mean, how is it that you're talking to me now? How was it able to be resolved?
I would like to think that she was mistaken. I hate to think that people were actually targeting Canadians.
You know what? That's really nice of her to say. She's actually taking a much more, like, understanding position than I am, honestly. She's being very gracious to even suggest that the police officer did all this under a misunderstanding. This seems like 20 misunderstandings in a row, which at that point doesn't seem like a misunderstanding to me.
But in the back of my mind, and from stories that I've now been hearing from so many people, I think this particular stretch of highway, they are targeting Canadians because they know they're not going to come back to protest any of the fees. So they can easily make some money off of a quick speed trap. And then when they saw that I had an invalid license, they thought maybe they could make more money because the money goes directly back to that county sheriff's office.
Huh. That's an interesting thought. I wonder if that's true. Like, do American police officers make enough money for it to be worth it to pull over, to target Canadians in particular, knowing that Canadians will go home to Canada and never come back to protest the ticket, and they'll just pay it, and that will make that particular police department more money. I've also heard of police officers in the United States needing to pull over a certain amount of cars per year, per month, like a quota or something, in order to prove that they're doing their job or something. Like, that could be part of this. They just think Canadians are easy targets for that, or either way, this is pretty sick, honestly.
How much did you end up paying?
The bond was set for 880 USD, but with fees and everything like that, it came to 927 USD, and then it cost me another 200 USD to get my car out of the impound lot.
Wow.
Over $1,000. Like, for a lot of people, they don't just have $1,000 like to spare like that. Like, this could ruin someone's life, this kind of situation. Sounds like this woman in particular is going to be okay, but again, just the idea that this situation is possible is disturbing enough to me.
So here you are, you're in the hole, you've had this experience, and is everything done now, or are there still matters yet unresolved for you?
Thanks to so many countless people in the United States and the Canadian consulate, this matter is almost completely resolved. My record has almost been expunged, which is great, and
if her record has been expunged, they're literally striking this from her record like it never happened. They are basically admitting this wasn't right, that this was all under false pretenses. And I feel like there's maybe she's too kind to pursue a lawsuit, but I feel like any American in this situation would sue.
Are mailing me a check with my bond money back.
Well,
they're giving her bond money back. I don't know if that's worth the pain and suffering.
that is good news, and it'll be all hopefully in the distant past. And yet, it's such a vivid account. And the I-75, how many untold millions of Canadians take that highway heading down to Florida or wherever? What's the lesson of your story, do you think, for fellow Canadians, Emily?
That's the sad thing. What is the lesson here? What is the lesson here? I mean, the lesson is for Canadians to view the United States with a grain of salt and be like, okay, I feel like some crazy, unpredictable, unjust stuff can happen to me when I'm traveling through America. That's a horrible thing to take away from this, but I don't know what else to take away.
I would say always be aware of the law. You do have the right to have a Canadian license, and you have the right to call the Canadian consulate. I was denied that right, but that goes against the Vienna Treaty. That does not count as your one phone call. They have to call them, and the Canadian consulate can easily clear things up for you.
They denied her the right to call the Canadian consulate, like the Canadian government, to help. This is so much more serious than I feel like even the victim here is sort of acknowledging. This seems like outrageous to me, like beyond outrageous. Like multiple crimes are being committed here.
Quite a
And
price.
always make sure.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Always make sure.
You have the hard copies of your documents as well. Because the phone, having them saved, it won't cut it anymore.
Ugh.
Certainly didn't in your case, you're right. I'm glad you're here to tell us all about it. What a story. Thank you that we can learn from you, and best of luck clearing the record and getting this all over and done with.
Wow.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Wow. Wow. That was by CBC News. I'm going to give it a like, not because I liked that story, but because I liked their acknowledgement of it and coverage of it and bringing it to light. Although it doesn't sound like that officer or the Georgia Police Department in question faced any consequences, which is kind of sad to me. I don't know. I noticed this little news report, and it really jumped out at me because it seemed like something really, really unfair had happened, and it was so much more than that, than my knee-jerk reaction to this going in. This story was crazy. Like, I don't even know what to say. This is that's wild. And I hope that maybe I could say there are a lot of law enforcement and police officers in the United States. I've encountered many of them. And in my personal experience, basically all of my interactions have gone well. I'm an American. And obviously, I feel like I'm not going to receive the same treatment other people might in the same situation, you know? Like, how police officers treat me might be different than how they treat a lot of other people based on a lot of other factors. So my experience, you know, take that with a grain of salt. But in my experience, interactions with police in the United States have been pretty positives. At worst, like, they just are slightly rude. But nothing like this. So I guess that's the little part of me that hopes there's a little hope for the future of the United States and all that. I don't know, man. This one makes me question quite a few things. But it was a fascinating news story to hear about. I know it happened 5 years ago, but a lot of people have watched this, and I'm glad I am one of them as well, because this was eye-opening, to say the least. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on this whole situation and your analysis. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian culture, usually stuff a little more upbeat, a little more happy than this, but it's important to address these types of topics as well, I think. Feel free to subscribe for more like that. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.